Well, good morning, everybody. It's good to see you all. This is part 7 in this series we've been in called Making Sense of Life, which means we are in the home stretch. Only 7 more weeks to go. I'm just kidding. No, we're going to wrap this up next week. The finish line is in sight. But for the past 6 weeks, we've been saying that as part of this series, we've been saying that all of us, and it really doesn't matter where we are in our faith journey, because I believe this is true. Whether you're a Christian or not, all of us are searching for a life that makes sense. And each week through this series, we've been coming back to the words that were spoken by Jesus of Nazareth almost 2,000 years ago and recorded for us in John chapter 10, verse 10, when Jesus said, "I have come that they," and that's us, by the way, "that they may have life and have it to the full." And as we've been diving deeper into the teachings of Jesus and looking at his life week after week, I've been making this case that life only makes sense when it's found and lived in Jesus. Because one of the things that we've been talking about is that that Jesus, and I think this is a mistake that a lot of us make, a lot of Christians make from time to time, is that we see Jesus as just sort of like this path to the life that we're longing for. We think that Jesus might be sort of like this spiritual supplement that we can just sort of add into our life to make it fuller. But Jesus isn't just the source of life. Jesus is life. Jesus is life to the full. And so this morning, I want to build on that theme together again by looking at something and talking about something that is just really a game changer when it comes to this life of fullness that we're all searching for. So I hadn't been married for very long when I began to notice a difference between Amanda and me when it comes to shopping. Very early on, I would get so confused because Amanda would say, "I'm just going to run out for a quick errand. Just to grab a couple of items from the store, really quick, I'll be right back." And then 3 hours later, I would be like, what happened? Did something go terribly wrong? Are you okay? What took you so long? Which I learned is not always the best question to ask, by the way, just so you know. But I couldn't understand this because now when it's my turn to go run an errand, or if I've got something I've got to pick up at the store, a couple of items or whatever, I know exactly what I'm there to get. I know exactly where to find it. I've already kind of calculated the route that's most efficient and everything like that. And I've always got like this stopwatch that's ticking in the back of my brain. And so I'm in and out in record time, right? That's because I'm not there to just run an errand. I'm on a mission, right? And so one thing I've learned about Amanda over the years is that when it comes to running errands, there is no mission for Amanda. It's me time. That's what it is. And so she's not there to just grab a couple of quick items. She's there to experience the entire store. So she grabs a cup of coffee on the way in. She's like, "I'm just going to settle into this moment." And we're just wired differently, which is great and wonderful, right? In fact, I take pride in the fact that my last solo trip to IKEA here in Tampa a couple of years ago, I had my list, and I was there to grab a few furniture items and things like that, and I had every item on that list, every box from the warehouse, every accessory, and I was in and out of IKEA in less time than it took to drive there. And I grabbed thanks, guys. So I grabbed a celebratory cinnamon roll for the road, But I was bragging about that to my sisters, and they're like, "What's even the point?" And I'm like, "What's the point? Mission accomplished. That's the point." But now if I'm there with Amanda, of course, it's a different story. It's not a quick in and out. It's a half day, right? We're wandering through the maze of IKEA, and we're sitting on all the sofas, and we're walking through all those little rooms, and we're going to eat some Swedish meatballs for lunch and all that. We make a day of it. But then again, there's still a mission. The mission in those moments is just the time that I have with Amanda, right? So either way, mission accomplished. So I'm just curious. When you hear that word mission, what comes to mind for you? And it could be a variety of things. We encounter this in just different ways in our lives and in our worlds. Maybe when you hear the word mission, you immediately go to that corporate mission statement that's maybe plastered on the walls at your workplace, or maybe the establishment that you frequent. Maybe if we got some gamers in the room, you think about your favorite video games because that new level, that new map, it has more mission objectives that have to be accomplished, right? Or maybe we think of our favorite movies or books or TV shows, whatever it is, because all the best stories are built around a really great mission. Whatever it is that comes to mind for you, I think we understand on some level that mission adds meaning. Right? This idea of mission just adds meaning. In fact, I would even go so far as to say that this idea of mission and meaning is really at the heart of this life that we're all longing for. I mean, all of us have this ache to be a part of something bigger, right? Something that matters, something that's lasting. And all the things that we think will bring us this sort of fulfillment. I mean, our life goals and our accomplishments and our achievements and stability and security, all of these things that so often become our life pursuits are also the things that just leave us sort of feeling empty in the end. Because eventually we find ourselves asking this question, is this it? Is this really all there is? Because even after accomplishing these goals, there's still this ache inside of us for something more. This feeling like there has to be more to life than this. And this might sound really ironic, but I really believe that one of the biggest disappointments in life is when we accomplish our biggest goals in life. When that lifelong dream becomes a reality. Because so often after we cross that line, it's like, well, that's awesome, but now what? Is this it? It kind of reminds me of this interview that Tom Brady did back in 2005 on 60 Minutes. I don't know if you remember this interview, if you heard about this at some point, but Tom Brady, just 27 years old, had just won his third Super Bowl. And he said this in this interview. He said, "Why do I have 3 Super Bowl rings and still think there's something greater out there for me?" And I think, I know exactly how you feel, Tom. After winning my family fantasy football league championship again last year, I get it, man. Just being the GOAT is not all it's cracked up to be, right? But then he went on to say this. He said maybe a lot of people would say, hey, man, this is what it is. I reached my goal, my dream, my life. Me, he goes on to say. He says, I think, God, there has to be more than this. And so then the interview, he says, well, what's the answer? And Tom just says, I wish I knew. I wish I knew. But that's the question that so many of us wrestle with in life, isn't it? I mean, is this it? And then what's the answer? And we think, well, if I could just reach that level of success, if I could just get to that place of recognition, or if I could just get to that level, whatever that is. And even in our faith journeys, I think this shows up. You know, it's like if we might think that if I could just have that kind of experience with God, or reach that depth of understanding, or maybe if I could just sort of master this discipline in my life, that's when I've arrived. But then some of us actually do, right? We reach that goal, we check that box, we take hold of that dream, and yet we still feel like there's something missing. And maybe what's missing is mission. It's mission. What I find really interesting about this English word mission is that it actually has its root in a Latin word. And some of you may know this already, but its Latin root is this word missio. And what's really interesting is that if you take that Latin word missio and you translate it into English, what it actually means is sent. It means to be sent. And so mission isn't just about purpose. It's about being sent with purpose. And that's exactly what we see in the life and the teachings of Jesus, because the life that makes sense, the full life that Jesus offers, isn't just the life that we receive, but it's a life that's sent with purpose and meaning and mission. And so through this entire series, we've been looking at John chapter 10. This has been sort of our starting point each week throughout the series, where Jesus not only makes this statement about life to the full, but then he goes on to describe that life using a metaphor. If you remember, Jesus, he said that I am the good shepherd who knows his sheep, who calls them by name, who leads them to good pastures, right? Who guards them and protects them from the threat of the thief who comes to steal and kill and destroy. This is life to the fullest. As we, the sheep in this metaphor, follow Jesus, the good shepherd. And it's a life of healing and wholeness and freedom and surrender and belonging. I mean, everything that we've been discovering together over these past 6 weeks. But then last week we sort of shifted a bit outside of this metaphor, and we talked about this full life being a life that's imitated. That as we're following the Good Shepherd, really our relationship with him is more like his apprentices, right? We're learning from him to live like him. That his way of life becomes our way of life. But apprenticeship to Jesus is ultimately about something much deeper that really comes into focus when we jump to the end of his story. And we see this come to life in one of my favorite scenes in Scripture, a moment that's just raw and redemptive and deeply human. And so we're going to be staying with John's biography of Jesus again this week. We're looking at John chapter 21. So if you brought a Bible with you this morning, maybe you have a Bible app, you want to turn there, go ahead. You can look at that as we're reading this here in just a moment. Of course, if you didn't bring one, don't worry. It's on the screens as always. But the scene that we're looking at really centers around another one of Jesus' followers, this guy named Peter. And to fully appreciate what's going on here, we're going to need to get a little bit of the backstory to get us caught up and to get us going here. So we're going to fast forward now to the night when Jesus was arrested and taken into custody. And he was being interrogated. He was being beaten by these religious authorities who would then go on to crucify him the next day. And while that's happening, Peter is close by. He's right outside in this little courtyard area. He's standing around this fire, and I'm just imagining the scene now. Peter right here in this crowd of people, and there's the fire, the crackling, the smell of the smoke, and all of that. And Peter is watching this scene just sort of unravel right in front of him. And 3 times, 3 different people in that crowd recognized him as one of Jesus' followers. And all 3 times, Peter adamantly denied that he even knew who Jesus was. Just completely abandoned and disowned his friend, his rabbi, in his darkest hour. And this, of course, wasn't the first time that Peter had failed Jesus or let him down in some way, but it was arguably the worst and his deepest regret up to this point. And so now we fast forward again, roughly 2 weeks later, and it's been about a week and a half since the resurrection of Jesus. He was crucified, but then he rose to life again, and he's already appeared now to his followers a couple of different times. And on this particular morning, Peter and about 6 other guys, they're on a boat and they're fishing, and Jesus shows up on the shore. And he calls to them, and they recognize him. And so they hurry back into the shore with their boat and this net full of fish that they've just caught. And Jesus is there. He's made this little fire right on the beach. And so they take some of that fish that they've caught. They cook up a little meal and they eat together. And this brings us to John chapter 21, starting in verse 15. So look at this as I read this for us. When they had eaten breakfast, Jesus asked Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" "Yes, Lord," he said to him, "you know that I love you." "Feed my lambs," he told him. The second time he asked him, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" "Yes, Lord," he said to him, "you know that I love you." "Shepherd my sheep," he told him. He asked him the third time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter was grieved that he had to ask him the third time, "Do you love me?" He said, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. Feed my sheep," Jesus said. I love this. I love this. Jesus, the Good Shepherd, tells Peter 3 times, "Feed my sheep. Shepherd my sheep." And of course, this is prefaced by 3 questions with 3 responses. There's something incredibly important happening here between Jesus and Peter. But the lesson in this extends to every single one of us. And so I don't want us to miss what I believe are 3 critical focal points that Jesus really brings to the forefront in this conversation. And the first one is more subtle, but easily the most powerful one. It's Jesus' love for Peter. Jesus' love for Peter. Now, he doesn't say this right? There's nowhere in this conversation where Jesus actually says the words to Peter, I love you. But I think it's significant that he pursued Peter, right? That he sought him out, that he chose to be where Peter would be that morning. This is significant. It says something. In fact, even with 6 other guys there, sort of awkwardly kind of watching in on this moment, it almost feels like this whole breakfast on the beach, the whole point to it was just so Jesus could get this one-on-one moment with Peter. And it's interesting because Jesus has sort of set the scene here. And as we understand what's happening, it's very clear that Jesus is sending a message with this. He's taking Peter back to the moment, the night of his worst failure. Think about this. They're sitting around a fire, just like Peter was standing around a fire that night. 3 times, do you love me? Just like 3 times Peter disowned Jesus that night. And so Jesus is taking him back to this moment of his maybe his worst night, this worst experience, but he's doing this just long enough so they can finally deal with it and move on. And move on from it. And Jesus is sending a message here, and the subtle message behind what's going on here is basically Jesus saying, listen, I know what happened. I know what you did. And yes, it hurt. It hurt both of us. And I can see the weight that you're carrying from it. I can feel the distance that it's created between us. But look at this. I've come to you. I closed that gap. I pursued you. I chose to be here with you right here, right now. In other words, I love you. That was his message to Peter in that moment. It's what Jesus is saying to us this morning. No matter what, no matter how I have failed him, no matter how you have failed him, he never stops loving you. His grace is never not enough for you. Okay, that's a double negative. It's always enough for you. And maybe someone here this morning just needs reminded of that. In fact, maybe there's someone here this morning who needs to hear that for the first time and believe that it's actually true for you. Jesus, first and foremost, wants you to know that he loves you. He makes that clear in this moment, his love for Peter, his love for us, but then what he brings to the surface and what he brings into focus for us is something that's a little bit more blatant in the text. It's Peter's love for Jesus. Peter's love for Jesus. I mean, 3 times Jesus asks the question, right? And 3 times Peter says, yes, Lord, of course, you know that I love you. In fact, he's even a little hurt that Jesus had to ask the 3rd time. It's like, Jesus, this is starting to feel like you're twisting the knife a little bit here, man. But again, Jesus is doing something significant here. Because he wanted Peter to know that there is more to life than this. Right? There's more to life than this pain and this shame and this regret that you're feeling right now. There's more to life even beyond your worst failure. And the mission that Jesus was about to send him into next would need to be rooted and established in just one thing: Peter's love for Jesus. Not his need to prove himself. Not his need to make up for his past mistakes. Not his need to follow some sort of strict moral code or his need for a more meaningful life. Just his undying love for Jesus, and that's it. And this is so important because when we experience the love of Jesus and his love then begins to overflow from our lives back toward him, it changes us. It changes who we're becoming. Because the Spirit of God, the power behind that love is changing us from the inside out. And now we begin to see things differently, right? I mean, we see problems, and we see priorities. We see people differently because we're seeing them as he sees them. And it's out of our deepening love for Jesus that we are motivated to love others just like he's loved us. And so what Jesus is doing here with Peter in this moment is the same thing that he wants to do with you and me. He is aligning Peter's heart with his. He's calling Peter to a love, not just for him, but like him. A love that's deeper than just emotion and affection. A love that's visible and tangible and actionable. A love that's demonstrated through selflessness and sacrifice and service. And then what Jesus brings into focus for us next, this third thing, is the response that comes with that love. I mean, his love for Peter in this moment is evident, and Peter's love for him was affirmed 3 times, and each time Jesus makes it clear to Peter what he needs to do in response. And here's what I love so much about this. When Jesus, the good shepherd, said, "Feed my lambs, shepherd my sheep, feed my sheep," he was basically saying to Peter, it's your turn now. It's your turn. It's now your responsibility to continue the work that I was sent into the world to accomplish. My work, Jesus was saying, is now your work. And this goes back to what we talked about last week, this whole idea of apprenticeship and what it's really all about. Because, I mean, this is why Jesus poured his life into this small group of followers around him who walked with him, who worked alongside with him, who watched how he was doing things and learned from him along the way. Because Jesus knew that the time was coming when his followers, his apprentices, would be sent out to continue his work. Not just to live like him, although that's part of it, but to do what he did. And now we see Jesus passing the baton to Peter, so to speak, sending him to lead and serve the church that would begin to take shape just a few weeks later. But when we zoom out, we can draw a straight line from this moment in John 21 to every follower of Jesus, connecting us directly to his mission. This is where it gets personal. This is where his words to Peter become his calling to us. Because Jesus is sending us. Every single one of us. Those of us who love Jesus and have given our life to Jesus and have chosen to follow him. Jesus is sending us in his love on his mission. And in fact, this echoes something else that Jesus said a little bit earlier on. If we turn back to John chapter 20, verse 21, Jesus said this. He said, "As the Father has sent me, so I am sending you." And this is huge. It's huge because that means that our mission isn't just to find and live this life to the fullest. It's not just so we can make sense of life. That's not our mission. Our mission is to do that, but then help others find and live a life of fullness as well. It's what we say around here so often, that followers of Jesus help others follow Jesus, who help others follow Jesus. And even just understanding that and stepping into that makes life so much bigger and fuller and so much more rewarding and fulfilling. To know that when we reflect the love of Jesus that's in us to the world around us, in a very real way, we are partnering with God in his mission to make this world a better place right here and right now. And to bring everyone we possibly can closer to him. Through our words and our actions and our love, God works through us to draw others into the same healing and wholeness and freedom that we found in him. And that's why it's really no surprise that so often when people describe how God's love became real to them, they almost always start talking about another person, right? And you've probably had this experience as well. In fact, if I were just to ask you, so how did God's love become real to you? You'd probably start rattling off some names. right? Talking about the people in your life who influenced you and who made that clear for you. I mean, sometimes it was a parent or a grandparent who just lived their faith authentically in front of you at home, and that's how God's love became real to you. Sometimes it may have come through a friend who just showed up at a really dark time in your life and just loved you unconditionally and spoke words of truth and encouragement into your life. Other times it may have been something like some people at church. Maybe it was through a small group that surrounded you and loved you and included you. Maybe it was maybe a message at church that felt like it was written just to you. But almost always, God's love becomes tangible through another person. Someone who reflected the love of Jesus in a way that brought it to life for you. And what makes this so beautiful and so fulfilling, and what makes this life so full, is that God loved you through someone, and now God wants to love someone through you. And any moment that we find ourselves in could be one of those moments that we are sent into with his mission. And when God sends you to be a living, breathing reflection of his love in the life of someone who desperately needs to know him and see him and experience him. And so that can look different, right? These moments that we're sent into, I mean, they can be big, they could be small. Maybe it's a moment that you're sent to volunteer for an afternoon as part of a cause that matters deeply to Jesus, and so it matters deeply to you. Other times it could just be being sent to share a kind word with someone who's struggling, or an encouraging text to someone who just randomly came to mind. You might be sent simply to notice a person who no one else seems to see. But whatever it looks like, however shape that takes, whatever shape that may take for us, when we're sent, the invitation is always the same. It's just this. One word. There it is. Go. When we know we're sent, we go. I mean, Jesus is sending us in his love on his mission, so we better get going. And here's where this starts for us. Just getting very, very practical. At home. With your family, in your marriage, with your kids, at work, or at school, on your team, or in your neighborhood. Because the reality is, where you live is where you're sent. These are the places that you've been sent into as his representatives to reflect his love, to show what he is like, and to carry on his redemptive work in the world around you. And maybe the best place to begin with this, if you're not doing this already, just a very simple place to begin, is to pray. Begin by praying for those people in your life. Maybe those are the people that you already know. Maybe they're people that you don't know well yet, but you'd like to get to know them so you can pray for them. Pray for those opportunities. Pray for those conversations to come up, to happen. And when they do, listen. Really listen to them. Hear their story. Get a glimpse of what they're walking through. Get to know them. Build a relationship with them. In fact, one of the most practical ways to do this is something we talk about around here. One of the most basic ways that you can build a relationship with someone is just to share a meal with them. Eat together. Right? So in some cases, that might look like just opening your table to someone. Maybe it's sitting around and having across a coffee table at a coffee shop or whatever, just having a cup of coffee. But you can get to know them. You can build that relationship that way, and then serve a need when it comes your way. And it will. And then when the opportunity comes up, and again, I believe it will, share your story with them. The story of Jesus. And the fullness of life that you've found in him. Because going on mission with Jesus can be as simple as learning to bless the people right in front of us. Right? This mission that we're sent into with Jesus, it adds so much meaning to our life. Because every conversation, every act of kindness, Every moment of obedience becomes part of something eternal. It's so much bigger than us. And what I'm saying is that it matters. It matters deeply. Because a life sent is a life that truly makes sense. Would you pray with me? Father, we come to you this morning with just a very simple prayer. Father, would you draw us so close to you, so deeply in love with you, Father, that the people closest to us, the people in our homes, the people that we live with, the people that we work with, the people that we interact with on just any given day and any given moment, Father, would you bring us so close to you that those people would experience your love and your peace and your joy through us, through our words, through our actions, through our presence, through our love. Father, that is our prayer today. Strengthen us and guide us, and as always, we ask for your courage to live this out. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you, Cypress. Have an awesome Sunday. We'll see you next week.